A warm welcome to you wherever you're watching us from. This is Good Morning Kenya, and my name is Martin Mwanje. This morning we talk about the Institute of Certified Public Accountants and its role in terms of fostering the country's economic development. And in studio with us this morning to help shed some light on the entire subject of what ICPAK does is CPA Benson Okundi. He is the Vice Chairperson of ICPAK, commonly known as the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Welcome to the program, Benson.
Thank you, Martin, for hosting me this morning.
It was a pleasure. Remember that I introduced you as CPA Benson Okundi, and somebody might be asking, why CPA?
CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant of Kenya. That means I'm a member of ICPAK, which is the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and recognized as a professional accountant in Kenya. That's why I use the designation CPA, and all members of ICPAK use that designation. Yes.
And I realized that ICPAK, as it were, came into existence in 1978. What informed the formation of ICPAK?
ICPAK indeed was established in 1978 under the Accountants Act, Cap 531. And its main purpose at that point in time was to help promulgate the professional standards that guide the members in discharging their professional duties as number one, and then also to help promote matters of governance and financial management, and to help project the profession at the international level. Now, the Accountants Act was further revised in 2008 through Accountants Act number 15 to help recognize the changes that are taking place within the profession so that the institute in Kenya could also align itself to those changes at the international and global level. And as a result of that act, some more functions of ICPAK were included, and specifically that included the mandate of advising the Minister for Finance on matters of financial management and governance, and indeed the public at large. So ICPAK has a very critical role of advising the public at large on matters of financial management and governance, and also promulgating the professional standards, be they technical standards like international standards on auditing, international accounting standards, and professional conduct and ethics that guide the members in discharging its duties.
So that we're talking about how many members are affiliated to ICPAK?
Currently, we have a membership of about 11,000 members. Those are members that are active. They have gone through the normal accountancy professional examination, and they have gone through the ICPAK admission process, and we are happy that they can be called they can be called Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Yes.
When you talk about reviewing the Act of 1978, and now we have that of 2008, and getting more functions, do you think then you have achieved these objectives so far?
I think to a large extent, ICPAK has achieved its objectives. Obviously, there is more that needs to be done. And I want to give you several examples. For example, in the area of advising the Minister for Finance on matters to do with the public finance management and governance at large, ICPAK has been involved significantly in the public finance matters, in budget setting process, advising the government and the country at large on that budget setting process, and more importantly, monitoring the use of the budget on a quarterly basis and making public statements to inform the public on how the budget is being used and the areas of variances and how those should actually be looked at. Also, if I look at the Public Finance Management Act 2012, ICPAK played a very significant role in that act, because we were very keen to ensure that the act that comes out to guide the public finance management is the act that embeds the professionalism and also the governance principles, especially in the area of financial management, such that when it is implemented both at the national government and the county level, the good practices of financial management are incorporated. In the area of governance, for example, every year we've got annual corporate governance conference. We get executives right from the CEOs, the chairman of the board, the chair of the board audit committees, the board members, and we take them through the corporate governance issues that are relevant in our corporations, both in the private sector and public sector. So to a very large extent, ICPAK has fulfilled its mandate and continue to fulfill its mandate, because we do realize that the public has got a very significant expectation of us in advising on governance issues and matters to do with professionalism, integrity, and accountability.
When you talk about membership of ICPAK, Martin, can I be, if I'm willing to join ICPAK, am I allowed? Or you have some, benchmark where I must fulfill before I join?
Martin, thanks for that. ICPAK being a professional body of certified public accountants of Kenya, obviously there are minimum criteria that must be fulfilled before one becomes a member of ICPAK. One of it is you have to go through accountancy professional examination, which is currently administered by CASNEB. CASNEB stands for Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board. They administer the accountancy professional exams at different stages. Once you qualify and pass those exams, you become a CPA finalist. Then ICPAK requires that you have some minimum years of practical experience before you can be admitted into the profession fully. So once you fulfill that criteria, you go through the admission process, the committee vets you, the admission committee vets you, and then you become a member of ICPAK. At that point in time is when you can start calling yourself CPA Martin. Prior to that, you are not CPA Martin. Even if you are CPA finalist, in other words, you've done professional exams up to the final stage, Section 6, before you are admitted to be a member of ICPAK, you are not a CPA, K. Yes.
And as we speak, of course, I'll be coming to the whole subject of training, but as we speak, we know that we're in the process of budget making for the financial year, I think, of 2013-2014.
That's right.
I want to believe that there's a moment that ICPAK is so busy, is it not?
You are right, Martin. We are currently engaged in the budget making process, providing advice. As a matter of fact, we met some governors that had already submitted their budget estimates earlier, as you may be aware, just to point out some of the things that could have been done better in that budget making process. Because our budget making process is not just for the purpose of producing numbers, but the budget making process must be very deliberate, take into account the activities that are aligned to a given vision and objectives to be achieved. At the national level, we are providing advice, and we intend or started engaging with the parliamentary committees that are responsible for the budget and just check whether the process as indicated in the Constitution and Public Finance Management Act have actually been complied with. But more importantly, whether that budget making process is a holistic process that captures the intent of the Constitution and is able to deliver what a budget should do for the country. Yes.
And talking about the budget making process, do you think you've got your mandate has been, or rather your role has been expanded? Because as we talk, then we have the county governments coming in place. They have to also make their budgets. Are you then going to go all the way to the county level?
Indeed, the reality is we have the national government, and then we have 47 counties. As a profession, obviously we have to align ourselves with the devolved governance structure that we currently have. And that's why I did mention earlier on that we have already engaged and in the process of engaging with other county governors on the budget making process, and indeed in other mandates of ICPAK. So Martin, you are right, our role has been expanded in terms of the scope, because we have to capture the county governments as well, in addition to the national government. All that we do in the area of the financial management and corporate governance, it will not just be considered at the national level, but will also go at the county government level. So we have a wider scope. And for us to be able to do that, we have intentionally empowered our branches. We have branches that are embedded at the county level, and we have empowered them to interact directly with the county governments and be able to preach the same message that ICPAK has as its mandate.
And I know you've worked in various countries, talk about even Europe and Ghana and such countries. If you compare our budget making process with those countries, do you think we are heading somewhere, or we still below par?
I would say that with our current constitution, our budget making process indeed puts us at a very high level or high stage compared to other countries in Africa. The budget making process, as you're aware of, is an inclusive process now, which requires several stakeholders to give their input. Stakeholders who are involved in that particular sector give their budgetary input, which then forms part of the national budget that is actually being delivered or being put on the table. To that extent, I think our budget making process is much more comprehensive, much more open, and much more transparent. And we are ahead of a number of countries in Africa. But there's something I want to talk about that is related to the budget making process, which according to a World Bank survey that was done recently, is in the area of public finance management. You cannot divorce the budget making process from that bigger subject of public finance management. I think as a country, when you look at several countries in Africa, a few of them actually ahead of us in that area. We have good plans and intentions in public finance management, especially linking up the national government financial management system to that of the county. But these are yet to be implemented. There are a few countries that have got fully integrated systems at the devolved government level to the national level. So that is an area where I think we have scope for improvement. But in terms of budgetary making process, I think our constitution makes it a very holistic, transparent, and open process, which is good for us. And to that extent, we are ahead of a number of countries that we can compare ourselves with.
Talking about ICPAK, does ICPAK have a code of ethics that guides its operations?
Very well. In fact, ICPAK's credo is professionalism, accountability, and integrity. That is what ICPAK stands for. So our code of ethics, which is again in line with our professional standards, are aligned along the credo. So ICPAK members are supposed to comply, supposed to breathe, sleep, and live that code of ethics. In their workplaces, whatever they do, that is what should actually guide their professional conduct and discharge of their responsibilities. Yes.
Do you have a mechanism of following to ensure that this particular code of conduct, the credo you're talking about, is effectively adhered to?
We follow through various means. I mean, one, we have continuous professional development program through which we get our members together throughout the year. This has spread in various months of the year. And in some of those forums, we follow up our professional code of conduct and ethics. But also, we have a whistleblowing policy or procedure whereby if an ICPAK member, for example, has not complied with any professional code of conduct, then that ICPAK member can be reported to ICPAK Council. ICPAK Council is the governing council of ICPAK. That's the governing body of ICPAK, which is headed by the chairman of the council. And the council has gone ahead and constituted a committee, a disciplinary committee, that if such cases are reported to it, then the committee carries out investigations. And if a member is found to have breached the professional code of conduct, then there are several disciplinary measures that are instituted against that member, some of which include suspension of the member, and in the worst case scenario, being deregistered from ICPAK membership.
How frequent have you suspended or deregistered?
We've had cases of suspension, a number of them, actually, especially on the practicing members of ICPAK. When I say practicing, those members of ICPAK that have professional firms that offer advisory and accountancy services together with tax services, the ones that their firms have been found to have not complied with the professional code of conduct have been suspended from the practice for a given period of time. Suspended with very specific remedial measures that if they don't comply with, they don't get back reinstated. So, Martin, we have such cases. We have cases going on at the moment because, as you would expect, being a professional body with professional code of conduct, you may not expect 100% compliance all the time. Yeah, so these cases do occur. Yes.
When you talked about your credo, you talked about integrity, you talked about professionalism, you talked about, if I remember very well, credibility.
Yeah.
Where do some of the cases fall? Is it about integrity? Because we know as accountants, mostly deal with finances.
Yeah. The cases spread across, actually, those three aspects of credo. I mean, integrity is very key to the individual. And I would say, as a professional and as a member of ICPAK, that integrity is really the bedrock of this credo that we have. Without integrity, then you are likely to sacrifice your professionalism and also your accountability. So the number of cases that we have seen are to do with integrity, whereby a member has not acted in good interest of his client or her client, and therefore the member's integrity is questionable. That's number one. We've also seen cases of professionalism, and that basically means that the member has not complied with the professional standards in discharging his or her responsibilities. And as a result, the member may have issued an advice to the client that does not reflect the actual situation on the ground. And that can stem from several aspects, maybe lack of technical knowledge or skill of the member, or professional negligence. So a number of cases stem from lack of integrity, or integrity not being exercised as it should be, and elements of some professional negligence. Yes.
And when you talk about professional negligence and in terms of professionalism, because I realize that ICPAK has also endeavored to ensure that international standards are met within the country, even as accountants discharge their mandate. What are the international standards do you think should be embedded in the work of an accountant in the country? And do you think we are on the route, on that particular route to meeting these particular standards, even as we ensure that the professionalism is adhered to?
Martin, one of ICPAK's core mandate is to promulgate professional standards and code of ethics. And those professional standards, as I said earlier on, are around the area of auditing, so internal standards on auditing, internal accounting standards, and professional code of conduct. I want to confirm that in Kenya, ICPAK has fully moved to international financial reporting standards, which is a financial reporting framework that is recognized by International Federation of Accountants, the worldwide body that governs the accountancy profession. So in Kenya, we have no exception. We have fully moved to the global expectation of a uniform financial reporting standards requirement. That's number one. On the auditing side of it, we have also fully embedded international standards on auditing, which again is globally recognized. The area that we are lagging behind in is in the public sector. Public sector is guided by International Public Sector Accounting Standards, IPSAS, because public sector objective is different from that of the private sector. So while IFRSs are very applicable to the private corporations that are trading in nature and therefore profit-oriented, they are not fully applicable to the public sector, like the national government, the local authorities, the non-governmental organizations. So that is an area where we're lagging behind, and ICPAK will be working very closely with the National Treasury to ensure that Kenya moves towards international public sector accounting standards. Now, in terms of compliance with these standards are technical in nature, and therefore, as an institute, we normally train our members so that they can be able to cope up with those professional standards requirements. But Martin, you know, training and enforcement is a different thing. Compliance at times fall through the cracks, and especially at some members of ours who are at low level of their practice, maybe one-member firm. They may not have the resources to try and comply with the standards that are required on an ongoing basis. However, as an institute, we are very conscious of this, and therefore we have reinforcement training programs so that our members can fully comply with those standards.
Talking about accounting as a profession, because I know when you talk about accountants, and if you look at law, for example, you get the branches of law, commercial law, you talk about criminal law, constitutional law. When you talk about accountants, do you have those ranks? Or when you talk about accountants, we just talk about accountants as a whole?
We also have those disciplines within accountancy profession. Accountancy profession is quite wide. First of all, when one says that is an accountant, the question is, are you a practicing accountant or are you an accountant that is in employment? A practicing accountant is an accountant that practices and therefore offers advice to clients, be they external clients or otherwise. So we have auditors to that extent that carry out the audit in accordance with the standards and provide opinion on the financial statement. That's one discipline of accounting. And that's where PricewaterhouseCoopers comes in, and the likes of PFK? That's right, yeah. Auditing is just but one aspect of what those firms do. They offer what is called assurance services as one of their professional service offerings. Assurance services is quite wide, include auditing, include expenditure verification, which can be captured as agreed upon procedure or non-audit assurance engagement, for example. But then also there is the tax aspect of it. Tax advice to clients, either in areas of tax compliance or tax efficiency and tax management issues. And then there is the aspect of the management accounting. These are people who now deal with, for example, looking at the management, the numbers that are produced in the management process of a transaction and advise the management accordingly. And then there are cost accountants as well. So those cost accountants are mainly applicable in manufacturing concerns, for example. So they look at the manufacturing process, look at the costing, and then advise management based on the numbers that actually come out of it. So accounting is quite wide in its discipline and indeed in its practice. We have the auditors, we have the financial accountants who are normally in the company, like in KBC, you have your finance manager, your finance director, who is in the area of financial accounting. Then we have the internal auditors as well, who basically look at the daily check of the transactions and compliance with the rules and regulations in a company or a corporation. So those are the wider disciplines of accounting, in practice. Yes.
And those disciplines, you do not see others, because I know that those normally disciplines, those who feel that this one is superior than the other, do you have that kind of contest?
Not so much in the sense that they are driven by individual interest. I mean, for example, I studied accounting at the university and then did the professional exams and is a member of ICPAK, a CPA for that matter, and I decided to pursue auditing. That is because of the interest that I had in auditing. Some of my colleagues went into companies and decided to be financial accountants, finance managers. Some of them are now finance directors. They carry out the routine finance accounting duties on a daily basis. Others also went into the auditing side of it. So really it's driven by what the individual requires, but in terms of the professional standing, we treat them all at par. And they all have standards that basically guide the conduct of the professional discharge of responsibilities.
Thank you indeed. You are watching KBC Channel 1, and this is Good Morning Kenya. This morning we talked to CPA Benson Okundi, who is the Vice Chairperson of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. This morning talking about the whole subject of the role of ICPAK, as commonly referred to. We'll take a short break, but after we come back, we look at the entire subject of training, that is of accountants. Do they also engage in ensuring that the standards of training are internationally benchmarked, as it were? We'll be back after this short break. Remember, if you want to participate in this program, the numbers below your screen speaks it all. Just send your comment and we'll be glad to sample some of them in due course of this program. Let's meet one another after this short break.
Huku ni kwako. Nakushoo hii ni keje yangu. Unafanya nini hapa ndani?
Hii ghetto ni yangu.
Ati nini?
Hii ghetto ni yangu.
Ice Cube, sasa sikiliza Ice Cube. Usikuja hapa kurandaranda kwa ploti ya wenyewe. Kama unataka kuona Moyo, enda kule anafanya kazi.
Boss, maswali haya yote bwana, na unajua Dr. Moyo hayupo.
Ice, hata unajua lazima niulize maswali. Si lazima niulize maswali ndio njue mimi ndo nalinda usalama ya ploti.
Yaani umeatia sampuli mtoto? Nimemweza. Una vile nikumweza sana silikuchu. Hivyo ndivyo nimemweza. Umemweza kivipi?
Unataka. You're commanding me.
Sorry,
Unataka hii. Wewe.
Sunlight, it's freshness that stays with you all day. The fragrance that lasts. Sunlight 2-in-1 washing powder makes your clothes smell full of fragrance. In fact, the fragrance is so good, it lasts and lasts and lasts.
I used to rule the world, seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets
Sunlight 2-in-1. Smell the clean all day.
KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
Indeed, welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. And remember, this morning we are talking to Benson Okundi, who is the Vice Chairperson of Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and looking at the role of ICPAK in the country. Remember that it was formed in the year 1978, and it has been discharging its mandate to this far, so many years of performance. Benson, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Martin.
Let's now focus on the role of ICPAK in terms of fostering the country's economic development.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin. ICPAK plays a very significant role in the economic development in this country. First of all, our members are widespread in different sectors of the economy. We are all everywhere. I mean, everywhere you go, you'll get an accountant who is a member of ICPAK, be it in the manufacturing sector, hospitality industry, everywhere, private sector, public sector. And in those organizations, they are at different levels. Strategic level, in the form of the CEOs, managing directors, board level, accounting, operational level, finance directors, and all that. And also the compliance level, which normally include internal auditors and the auditors. Through the roles that they carry out in discharging their professional conduct, they help to shape the direction of this economy by advising their companies, their management, on the trends to take in line with their business objectives. So our members play a very significant role in influencing the economy in one way or the other. At the national level, as I said earlier on, ICPAK mandate is to advise on financial management and governance issues. And one of the things that ICPAK has been doing, for example, in the area of the budgetary process, is to influence the policies that are positively required for the development of the economy. So through that influence, we are then able to shape the direction of this economy. And that is done through constant engagement with the various stakeholders that are directly involved in steering this economy. We do engage quite a lot with the parliamentary committees, the budget parliamentary committees, for example.
Especially the oversight ones.
The oversight ones, like the PAK,
and
the PIK as well, the Treasury, the governors, and other stakeholders that are directly involved, together with the commissions which have been formed under the Constitution. And this engagement is geared towards ensuring that the country takes a good shape in economic development. Also through the fora, we normally have seminars that we have, which are geared towards economic development. For example, every February of the year, we normally have economic symposium. And the objective of the economic symposium is just to dissect on the economy, the Kenyan economy. But not just the Kenyan economy, looking at the Kenyan economy in tandem with the economy within the region, the East Africa, and also Africa as a whole. And we bring people who understand economic issues and discuss these economic issues at a great length, and then come up with a raft of recommendations that we then make to the various ministries that are directly related to those recommendations. We have the annual seminar, which is coming up. I'll talk about it later on. We have the corporate governance seminars. So all these are aimed at looking at the issues that drive the economy in a wider perspective. But at the policy level, the ICPAK governance through the council are engaged in advocacy and thought leadership areas, in engaging with the various stakeholders in matters that are at a wide range in economic development.
And then talking about your opinion, of course, it's normally advisory in nature, and you influence opinion. If you, policymakers, that is, you influence policies. When you give this opinion, do you think it's normally adhered to, or is it normally neglected?
I must say that our institute, ICPAK, is highly respected. And we are respected because of the credo which I mentioned earlier on. We are very impartial, credible, professional. And if I give an example, if I give several examples in 2012, whereby either a commission or parliamentary bodies, or all of them, most of them, invited us, for that matter, to give our views on the various issues. Every time that a bill came through, ICPAK participated in it. We got invitations, we made presentations, and we could tell that our opinion and views were very well respected. And to a large extent, a number of recommendations that we made were actually taken up. Like a raft of recommendations of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 that we made were actually taken up in the Act. That is a clear indication that our recommendations and opinion are valued by the various stakeholders because of the professionalism and integrity that we do stand for. So I strongly believe that our institute will continue to play that significant role in the policy area, in the agenda area, and will continue to work to shape this country in the appropriate direction. Yeah.
And so, when you talk about the economic prospects that this country has, and of course many people saying that the economy will be growing at likely 6% this year, do you think that enough is being done, therefore, to ensure that, or are you already in the process of participating with the policymakers to ensure that even as these prospects are being fronted, you have a meaningful role to play in ensuring that this is something that is going to be achieved?
That's right. We engage, as I said earlier, and continue to engage with these policymakers to ensure that an appropriate platform for this economic development that is being projected for 2013-2014 is indeed achieved. I mean, yesterday there was a projection of 6% of economic growth for 2013-2014, and from our perspective, from what we see, the country actually is at a state whereby the investors really want to come in and invest. And for that to be realized, there needs to be a good platform, an investment platform, for the investors to be comfortable to come in. Security must be in place. The respective business laws that facilitate business registration and investment processes must actually be in place. The governance cutting across top level, different levels must actually be in place. So ICPAK comes in very handy in discussions with the various stakeholders that are directly involved in some of these things that I've talked about to ensure that this platform do exist for the anticipated investment to take place.
But there are those who express concern that the projected 6% is unlikely to be achieved because if you look at maybe the security situation, like you say, in the country, the other variables, whether Western countries are going to cooperate, and so many dimensions, people really expressing fears. It's unlikely that we may achieve that particular objective.
Well, it is a projection, but looking at the general atmosphere, especially the investment climate, it looks positive. And actually, even the survey is done by the World Bank and other credible organizations. Africa is on the path to growth. And there's a lot of investors focus in Africa. And as you're aware, Kenya is strategically located, I mean, within the sub-region. Kenya is a gateway to most of these investment destinations. And even the people I've interacted with at my own personal level, they talk very positively about Kenya. Of course, there are these political variables, including insecurity that must be addressed. But generally, there is that willingness to come and invest in here. And I think that is what is driving the optimism of the positive economic growth. But I must say, the platform that underpins the investment and economic development must be addressed. And that is at the national government and the county government level. The political stability, the security, those are issues that must be addressed. The governance issues, we must continuously work towards addressing them. Creating a conducive business environment must actually be a priority to the government. So I'm a Kenyan, optimistic of this growth from what I see as a professional, and also from the interactions and the discussions that the various investors do talk about our country. But there are things that must be done.
Because if you look at Rwanda, for example, many people saying Rwanda is really growing so fast. And if you look at Kenya, you talk about strategic location. How comes we as a country, we grow at 7%, maybe 7.1, then we drop all the way to 4. Do you see a situation where we are likely to, because the government, remember, that has promised that it wants to grow this economy at double digits.
Yes.
Do you see a situation where that optimism is going to be maintained, that we may even hit 10% in the near future?
But Martin, you know the factors that led to our drop in economic development. I mean, these are basically political related factors. You know, when you had the political instability, the 2007, 2008, the economic growth just went down significantly. But Kenya has a very strong and resilient private sector. We must recognize that. Despite of all these challenges that the country has faced, the private sector has remained very strong, very focused, and very vibrant in terms of its growth. Kenya has got an upcoming and emerging middle market, middle companies, small and medium enterprises, which again must be supported. It is my belief that a combination of small and medium enterprises and the already vibrant and resilient private sector that we have should be able to propel that economic growth. What we need to work on for us to realize the 10-digit economic growth that we are talking about is the platform that underpins the business environment that drives the growth in the economy. And that platform is a political platform. If we get it right, we are able to set the tone at the top. The tone at the top, that is the tone of the governance. We talk about governance and we do it. And governance is quite a wide subject. The controls that basically drive the organizations, the behaviors and the ethics, doing the right thing at the right time. If we set that at the top and it cuts across all the sectors of the economy, combined with the strong private sector, the upcoming in a very strong way small and medium enterprises, that double-digit growth is not a dream. Yeah, it's actually will be realized, will be a reality.
Of course, we'll be waiting from the flanks to see how it goes.
That's right, yeah.
Let's talk about the training of accountants in this country, because, for example, I'm a journalist, and those who have expressed concern that the standards of some colleges are just mushrooming, but they do not have the facilities to train. Is it a problem in the accounting profession?
It is, just like we've seen many colleges coming up, even at various levels, including the university level, and there's a question of quality. Are we producing, are those colleges producing the right quality of people that basically meets the standards that are expected, not just in Kenya, but also internationally? Accountancy training is very rigorous. Rigorous in the sense that you really have to go through several sections, several parts before you can actually go through. Even if you're just doing the accountancy training at the technician level, which is not the professional level, is very rigorous. Many colleges have come up. There are a number of household colleges that are known for their quality and all that, but there are also many small ones that have come up. The Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board basically carry out the regulatory role of ensuring that the training curricula for accountants is aligned with the global accountancy profession, and more importantly, with the demands of the economy. And those curricula is what is expected that the colleges will apply in training their people. CASNEB, again, working closely with ICPAK, also check the quality of some of these colleges. And once in a while, we do carry out a check to ensure that the colleges which have been registered meet the minimum standards. But Martin, 100% compliance is not realistic. There are cases whereby some colleges have not complied with the quality expected, and actions have been taken, or they have been given remedial measures to be able to address those recommendations so that they can continue to offer training. But that's an area that I think going forward, obviously, we need to look at much more closely as well.
And talking about those colleges that not meet, what happens? What are these remedial actions you're talking about?
I think, first of all, you check the quality of the trainers, those who train the students pursuing accountancy professional exams. Are they qualified themselves in the subject that they're training? Do they have the necessary experience? To me, that is one of the major challenges that we are experiencing. You realize that for one to impact a credible knowledge to somebody, especially somebody who wants to pursue a professional exams, that person himself must have the time, the commitment, and more importantly, the qualification. At times, we do lack that because, again, those colleges, most of them are commercial in nature. They may not necessarily want to attract the best. So in instances where there are capacity gaps in terms of the skills of the trainers, we do ask those colleges to carry out remedial measures within a given period of time. And we check, and if that is not the case, then appropriate actions. We recommend appropriate actions that are taken against them. So the major challenge is just the capacity gaps in terms of the qualifications that are expected and what does exist in reality. Yeah.
And so I'm looking at a student who sat for his Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examinations, and his results were released last year.
Yeah.
And he wants to pursue accounting. And you admit that we have some number of colleges that do not meet your standards.
Yeah.
How do I know that this is the best college I should go to so that I pursue my accountancy dream?
I think the first point of call will be to contact CASNEB, Kenya Accountant and Secretary's National Examination Board, for possible recommendations, because they will have a list of registered accountancy colleges. So that will be the first point of call. Yeah. And then if in doubt, or if you want to get further information, you can also talk with ICPAK, who works very closely with CASNEB, as I said earlier on, and we can make recommendations, or we can advise you accordingly. Yes.
We know that refresher courses are also important, and I
Yeah.
know that you'll be holding a seminar. You'll be hosting a seminar sometimes this month.
Yeah.
Where will it be, and what is it geared to?
The seminar this month is, actually it comes on the 29th of May. This is our annual seminar that will be held in Mombasa. The annual seminar gets the accountants together. We actually expect about 1,200 members of ICPAK to come together on 29th for a 3-day seminar that will run up to 31st. It will be held in Mombasa. The theme of this seminar this time around is on investment, realities, opportunities, and challenges. And the reason why we have selected that theme is because we are looking at investments taking place in Kenya, in the region, and in Africa. As I said earlier on, a number of investors are actually looking to come into Africa and to Kenya and neighboring countries. For many years, Africa has been associated with poverty, disease, and all that. But we see that changing. We see foreign investors talking about Africa is the engine of growth for the world. Africa has got potential for economic growth. So investment is becoming a reality for us. And back in Kenya here, for example, we expect, with the devolved government structure, we do expect that the investment level at the county and also at the national level will catapult the economic growth that we talked about earlier. So that's why the selection of the theme. So if you look at the theme carefully and the associated areas of discussion, we'll be looking at the barometer of investment climate in Kenya. That is the first item. How is the investment climate in Kenya is at the moment? Then we look at the emerging investment opportunities within Kenya and its region. Then we'll be looking at what are some of the challenges in the real estate investment, because real estate has really been growing. Whether there's economic downturn, the real estate is a sector that has been constantly growing. But we want to be careful and look at what is the future of the real estate, the present and the future. Then we will look at the Chinese investment model, and we've selected that topic categorically because the Chinese are becoming a very significant part of investors in Africa.
And more likely a threat sometimes.
More likely a threat sometimes, the way people pursue it. But for now, especially in the area of infrastructure, Chinese are playing a very significant role in Africa. So we want to understand what is their model, their investment model, and what are they seeing in Africa, what is actually bringing them in Africa. And then we'll be looking at the e-banking, for example, electronic banking, and more importantly, how does that e-banking likely to influence economic growth, economic development, and the life of the ordinary Kenyan. And then we look at the telephone, mobile telephone industry as well. So we have a wide range of topics that we'll be discussing at the annual seminar in Mombasa, taking place next week from 29th to 31st. And we expect 1,200 members of ICPAK and invited members to attend. Yeah.
And talking about opportunities, realities, and challenges. And of course, as we speak, everybody's rushing all the way to the county level, knowing that there are so many opportunities. What are likely to be the challenges? I'm doing this so that I preempt that particular workshop in Mombasa. You can just, what are likely to be the challenges at the county level? Because we seem to be rushing all the way to the county level.
Yeah, I think one is good to recognize that there are likely to be a lot of opportunities at the county level. And this is the best that Kenya has had. I mean, having a devolved government structure in the name of a county, a governor, and executive committee of the county this is the best that Kenya has had. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities, but it will depend on how those prospects of the opportunities are managed. The governance issues, again, become top. Now, one of the challenges that obviously will be faced at the county level, one, we are in the transition year. Year 1, year 2 could be considered as transition years. And it will depend on how the governor and his executive committee come on board quickly and address the challenges of that county. If they don't come on board quickly, if they take the traditional politicians' behavior at the county level, some counties will not go beyond the transition within the first 2 years. If a governor and his executive committee are able to rise to the challenge and move quickly, they'll be able to address those challenges faster and then take the county into the right path of the development. So we must recognize that year 1 and year 2 are likely to be slow years. It will depend on the governor and the executive committee, but if that is done, that will, the county will grow. So that's the challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is alluded to what I've already said, the bigger governance, what I see. You know, the mentality. Especially if a governor found himself in that position, not with the intention of helping to grow the county, then what we have seen happening in the past will still happen. The governor may not look at the county resources for the benefit of the people of his county. These resources may not be used judiciously. So in other words, the aspects of accountability are likely to be compromised. And if that happens, then obviously the benefits that the county's citizens expect will not flow to them. And then, of course, there's the aspect of capacity. You know, the human resource capacity that each and every county has. For the county to discharge its mandate fully will require some human resource capacity that is capable of helping to shape the future of the country. And I think that human resource capacity is being addressed, but probably at a much more slower pace than would have been expected, because if you don't have adequate resources in terms of people to be able to drive, then you may not realize your challenges.
There are those who say that the Constitution appears to have created so many centers of power at the county level. Talk about governor, talk about senator, talk about women rep, talk about a member of parliament. That if there's a chance that these people start in fighting, then can that be a threat to development of the county level?
They all have different roles to play. They were created, those mandates and offices were created for different roles. The most important thing is to synergize. And the governor should be able to know what role does which office perform, and how do I synergize as a governor to ensure that I get the best of all the offices. But I can assure you, in instances where there are conflicts, and as will be expected, because we are not expecting a smooth 100% implementation system, and especially at the beginning years, there is bound to be conflicts, as you may have seen, initially with the county commissioners and then the governors. But you even hear that is going down now, because I think the roles are being much more streamlined. If there are conflicts, and this will depend on the capability, I keep on saying the governor has a huge role, of the governor to be able to address those conflicts, and to be able to bring everybody on board to play and understand a bigger objective of the vision. But if that is not done and not addressed properly, that has a big potential to stifle the growth agenda. But if they are addressed, Martin, I believe that each and every role has got a specific mandate to contribute towards the county development. But if they're not addressed properly, they will stifle the growth and development.
And you say that, of course, the conference will also be looking at the opportunities within the region. Do you feel we still have opportunities?
We do have opportunities within the region. We do have, and Kenya has got a very strong human capital base. We must recognize that. Accountants, for example, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the accountancy bodies in Rwanda, in Tanzania, and Uganda. We are members of ICPAK and actually move freely and practice in Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania. And indeed, we have our members practicing there. So there's an opportunity that we need to exploit. So within the sub-region, if you look at the opportunities that are there, one of them is in the area of human capital, where we can freely move our human capital to help develop the economies of those sub-regions. And even just the movement of goods, the trade, sharing what we have in Kenya and what they have, if the trade barriers and are addressed properly, I strongly believe that there are opportunities.
If you talk about professionals like accountants going all the way to Rwanda and such countries, does that to an extent smack of some kind of brain drain?
Not necessarily in our profession, because as I said earlier on, we have about 12,000 members, and I've not had or I've not anticipated a lack of accountants that are required in Kenya. In fact, as a matter of fact, there are a number of members of ICPAK that probably are not well placed. They may be doing things that are not very strategically placed for them. So I don't see it as a brain drain on the accountancy profession. I actually see it as a bigger contribution to the profession by exporting the professionals to the other countries. So not a brain drain in our profession.
And when you talk about regional investment as well and opportunities, if we see what has been happening in some of the African countries, and I can quote Uganda, for example, that is that a threat that many people may be not willing to go and invest in some of these countries because of the leadership that unfortunately Africa finds itself with?
It has the potential to deter, because one of the catalyst or catalytic factors for investment is freedom of communication, media, stability. So whatever is happening within the neighboring countries, if anything that infringes on those rights, obviously everyone looks at it with a second thought. So it has the potential to deter. Yeah.
And talking about the conference in Mombasa, for those who will be attending, of course, 1,000 and such, are you having some charges for them? And
yeah, we do have charges for the conference fee, because you would imagine that a conference of that nature calls for a lot of resources to organize. So we do have charges for them, which obviously has been communicated to them. They make their accommodation arrangements, or the institute does for those who would want to be arranged for by the institute, and also they also make their transport arrangements. But the annual seminar is just but one of the many conferences that we do. We do continuous professional development programs throughout the year to be able to retool our members so that they can be able to comply with the professional standards that I talked about earlier. So constantly, every month there's something happening. For example, there's internal auditors conference, specifically for the internal auditors. There's management accountants conference, specifically for the management accountants. There's economic symposium that I talked about to look at the matters of the economy. There is a corporate governance conference, and then there are now some technical trainings that are geared towards standards and also towards specific sectors like hospitality, agriculture, and all that. All done to be able to build up the capacity of our members and to keep them up to date with the development in the profession as a whole. Yes.
And maybe do you also have do you allow some of your members to advance if they want to pursue further education? You can facilitate that particular arrangement?
That's left to the members to decide on if they want to pursue further education. Once, of course, that will depend on you. Once you get your accountancy qualification, you want to do masters or you want to specialize in a particular area, I think it's all left for the member to decide. Yeah. But we have our university, Kenya College of Accountancy University, premier university of which ICPAK is the founder, which facilitates our members who want to pursue degrees at that university. They get it at a slightly lower fee. Yes.
So it offers degrees. When was it established, maybe, this particular college? And
KCAE was established a number of years ago. I cannot remember exactly how many years ago. But it was established as part of ICPAK's mandate of adhering the accountancy profession. So the initial objective of Kenya College of Accountancy, as it was called at that point in time, was to offer accountancy courses. But then we did realize that we can actually offer business-related degrees, and therefore transformed Kenya College of Accountancy into Kenya College of Accountancy University. So it offers currently university courses in business-related areas and also traditional accountancy areas. Yes.
And you normally your intakes, because I'm very sure that so many people want to pursue, maybe wants to become accountants, but you know, that lack of information. So if I want to pursue accounting at KCA,
yes.
Is it also done every year? How is the arrangement?
Once you, it depends on the level that you want to pursue the accounting qualification at. I did mention technician level and professional level. Professional level, you will be doing the CPAs that then leads you into being a CPA finalist and finally a member of ICPAK. Technician level, you'll be pursuing at a slightly lower level, which then you can transit into the professional level. But all this is determined by the minimum qualification criteria at KCSE level that has been established. Those criteria are available at CASNEB, one can clearly see. So if you meet a criteria, for example, to go straight into CPA, that means pursuing professional accountancy qualification, then the next step is to register in a college. And the registration normally takes place twice a year because the exams are administered twice a year. So I think the first step, if you are interested in pursuing accountancy after KCSE, is to find out what is the minimum qualification criteria for either a professional accountancy exams or exams at a technician level. Once you meet either of the level, then the next stage is which colleges do offer them and when do they register. But the exams are offered twice a year, the colleges register twice a year. So, and the most appropriate center to obtain this information from is from CASNEB. You can check from the website and then you register into a college. Yes.
I've heard some people say that I know CASNEB allows, for example, a student to go and register and then go and study on his own or go and study on or her own and come and do her exams. That particular mode of operation, there are those who say that produces kind of half-baked graduates. Is it something you buy?
I
Because
did that.
cannot
I went through that. I did my CPA exams concurrently with my university degree. So obviously I didn't have a chance to go to a university, to a college to pursue accountancy. And I know many other people have done that. It doesn't, I don't buy into that fully. In the sense that you have to pass the exams, regardless of whether you study as a private student or as a university or as a college student. You have to pass exams. And the exams are, especially at professional level towards the end, they are geared towards the practical circumstances, which means that even if you are just reading for the purpose of exams, you must open up your mind and try to relate it to the wider environment in which you are operating. They are not just purely theoretical. So I don't fully buy into that because I know a number of people have actually qualified CPAs as private students the way I did, and I did not find it. I did not find it to result into half-baked professional. Of course, there are challenges. You don't get a chance to share with the other students. You don't get a chance to learn from your tutor. But then you must have a system whereby